If you ran the same SPICE model that accurately characterized a 250 nanometer transistor in 1998 on a 5 nanometer FinFET today, you will get a prediction that disagrees with the measured device by orders of magnitude on gate leakage, by 100 to 200 millivolts on threshold voltage, by 30 to 50% on drive current, and by a factor of 10 on contact resistance. Same mathematical structure, same parameters adjusted to fit. Wrong answers. Systematically, reproducibly, physically wrong. The problem isn't numerical precision. The problem is that the underlying equations were derived from classical physics. And classical physics describes a world where electrons are particles with definite positions and momenta, where barriers block electrons with insufficient kinetic energy, and where current is proportional to the density of scattering events. That world is an excellent approximation for devices above 100 nanometers. Below 10 nanometers, it's wrong. The figure overlays the industry's historical technology node roadmap with four horizontal lines, each marking the gate length at which a specific quantum effect became non negligible. The gray line at 100 nanometers, that's where quantum tunneling gate leakage became measurable. The amber line at 30 nanometers, quantum confinement begins shifting threshold voltage in a way no classical adjustment can correct. The green line at 15 nanometers, ballistic transport replaces drift diffusion as the dominant current mechanism. And the crimson line at 5 nanometers, wavefunction scattering begins controlling contact resistance. Now, the manufacturing roadmap crossed the tunneling threshold around 2001. It crossed the confinement threshold around 2008, crossed the ballistic transport threshold around 2015, and it's crossing the contact resistance threshold right now. The physics didn't wait for engineers to be ready. Now, the gate oxide in the modern transistor is roughly 1 to 2 nanometers thick. That's 4 to 8 atomic layers of silicon dioxide. Classical physics says an electron on one side of the oxide without enough kinetic energy to climb over the 3.1 electron volt potential barrier simply stays where it is. The classical prediction for gate leakage current through the barrier is essentially zero. Not small, zero. Now, the gray dashed line in the figure shown below is the classical prediction. It's horizontal and negligible current, regardless of oxide thickness, because the classical model says that the barrier is either passable or impassable based on energy, and a 3.1 electron volt barrier is impassable for electrons at room temperature. The solid navy curve is the quantum tunneling prediction. It drops exponentially with increasing oxide thickness, but at 1.2 nanometers, it's predicting gate leakage of 1 to 10 amperes per square centimeter. That's not a small correction to the classical model. It's the entire current. The crimson dots are measured data from real SiO2 dielectric FETs. They follow the quantum tunneling curve closely and diverge completely from the classical prediction below 2 nanometers. The engineering consequence of this was industry changing. The transition from SiO2 to hafnium oxide gate dielectrics, the most significant process change in the industry since the introduction of polysilicon gates, was driven almost entirely by this one quantum effect. Hafnium oxide has a higher dielectric constant than SiO2, which means you can use a physically thicker layer to achieve the same gate capacitance. A thicker physical layer means a wider tunnel barrier, which means exponentially less tunneling current. The fix was to change the material so the quantum effect was suppressed, not to model the quantum effect and live with it. Now, in a classical MOSFET model, when you apply gate voltage and invert the channel, the electrons form a thin sheet of charge sitting at the silicon dioxide interface. Their energy is the conduction band edge of silicon. They can occupy any energy level above that edge. There's a continuum of available states. The picture is wrong for thin channels and high gate fields. When electrons are confined to a thin potential well, the inversion layer, which is 2 to 5 nanometers wide under strong inversion, quantum mechanics requires them to occupy discrete energy levels, not a continuum. This is the same physics as a particle in a box. The allowed energies are quantized, and the lowest allowed energy sits above the bottom of the box. Now, the left panel shows the band structure at the interface. The navy curve is the classical conduction band edge. Electrons can sit at this energy in the classical picture. Now, the two horizontal lines are the quantum subbands. E1, the ground state, sits above 80 electron volts above the classical band edge, and E2, which sits at around 135 electron volts above. Electrons cannot occupy the classical band edge at all. The lowest they can sit at is at E1. What this means for threshold voltage, the gate must now supply enough field not just to bend the bands to inversion, it has to bend them far enough that E1, which sits above the classical band edge, falls below the Fermi level. That extra bending requirement translates directly into a higher threshold voltage. The amount of the shift depends on the confinement energy, which depends on the body thickness and the gate field. The right panel shows the VT shift versus body thickness. The threshold voltage shift above the classical prediction, right? So at 30 nanometer body thickness, a thick planar MOSFET, the shift is maybe 30 millivolts. Measurable but manageable. At 5 nanometer body thickness, a FinFET fin or a gate all-around nanosheet, the shift exceeds 150 millivolts. Modern FinFETs and gate-all-around devices operate in exactly this regime. A classical threshold voltage calculation is off by 150 millivolts on every device on the chip. The drift-diffusion model that underlies every classical transport simulation is built on one foundational assumption. Electrons scatter frequently as they travel through the device. They collide with phonons, with impurities, with interface roughness. These collisions establish a statistical drift velocity proportional to the applied field, and that proportionality constant is the mobility. Current is mobility times charge density times field. Clean, simple, experimentally validated at long gate lengths. Now, the mean free path, the average distance an electron travels between scattering events in silicon at room temperature, is approximately 10 to 20 nanometers. So, for a transistor with 200 nanometer gate length, an electron scatters 10 or 20 times crossing the channel. The statistical assumption holds perfectly. For a transistor with a 5 nanometer gate length, an electron slows the channel in less than one min free path. Most electrons transit the device without scattering at all. This is ballistic transport. The electron travels from source to drain like a billiard ball, not like a molecule diffusing through a gas. The concept of mobility, which assumes many collisions, doesn't apply. You can't define a mobility for a single scattering free transit. The figure shows the drive current as a function of the gate length. The navy dashed line is the classical drift diffusion prediction. Current scales as 1 by L, going to infinity as you shrink the gate. The green solid line is the ballistic quantum model current that also increases as you shrink, but at a much more moderate rate that saturates towards the quantum conductance limit. The crimson dots are the measured data. Below 15 to 20 nanometers, data follows the ballistic curve, not the classical one. The classical model overpredicts current at short gate lengths because it assumes scattering events that aren't happening. The vertical line marks the mean free path. To the left of it, ballistic transport dominates. To the right, drift diffusion applies. Now, classical contact resistance theory, Schottky and thermionic emission, treat the metal semiconductor interface as a macroscopic potential barrier with a characteristic height determined by the band alignment and a current determined by the thermal distribution of electrons with enough energy to surmount it. Adjust the barrier height by changing the metal work function adjust the doping near the contact, and you predict and optimize the contact resistance from purely classical parameters. This works when the contact is large, hundreds of nanometers or more. At that scale, even if the interface has some atomic roughness, the contact area is large enough to average over many atomic configurations, and the thermionic model gives correct results. Now, at sub 10 nanometer contact dimensions, the entire contact area contains only a few hundred atoms. The interface roughness is no longer a small perturbation on a macroscopic barrier, it is the dominant structural feature. An electron approaching the contact doesn't see a smooth potential ramp, it sees an atomic scale disorder pattern, and whether it transmits or reflects is determined by its quantum mechanical wave function interfering constructively or destructively with the disorder. The figure plots the contact resistance against contact length. The navy dashed line is the classical thermionic emission prediction. The green squares are measured contact resistance for silicon FETs. They follow the classical prediction reasonably well down to 10 nanometers. The crimson triangles are measured contact resistance for molybdenum sulfide and other 2D contacts. At 5 to 10 nanometer contact resistance, the classical model underpredicts the measured 2D contact resistance by a factor of 10 to 100. That's not a parameter adjustment. The mechanism is different. The correct calculation requires modeling the electron wave function at every atomic site in the interface, computing the quantum transmission probability across the disordered interface, and summing over all occupied channels. A non-equilibrium Green's function calculation that has no equivalent in classical theory. So the figure maps every classical failure mode to its quantum replacement. Gate tunneling is described by the Wenzel-Kramers Brillouin approximation, or WKB, a method for computing quantum transmission probability through a slowly varying potential barrier, combined with the Fowler-Hodheim tunneling current formula derived from it. Both methods appear in production TCAD simulators and are required for any accurate prediction of gate leakage or flash memory programming currents. Quantum confinement and threshold voltage are addressed by solving the Schrödinger equation and the Poisson equation simultaneously in a self-consistent loop. The Schrödinger equation gives you the allowed energy levels for electrons in the potential well created by the gate bias. The Poisson's equation gives you the potential from the charge distribution. They have to be solved together because each one's output is the other one's input. Ballistic transport is described by the Landau-Boettcher formalism, which computes current as the quantum transmission coefficient through the channel multiplied by the number of occupied conducting channels and the quantum conductance unit, 2e squared over h, where E is the electronic charge and h is the Planck's constant. The transmission coefficient replaces mobility entirely as the fundamental transport parameter. Contact resistance at atomic scales requires non-equilibrium Green's functions methods, NEGF, combined with the atomic structure computed by density functional theory. NEGF propagates electron wave functions from the source metal through the disordered interface into the semiconductor, computing the transmission matrix element at every atomic site and summing over energy channels. Now, these four frameworks are not incremental corrections to classical physics. They are different mathematical structures derived from the postulates of quantum mechanics. ArcD builds each one from the Schrödinger equation forward, without assuming you remember what you learned about wave mechanics in university. Because frankly, most device engineers were taught quantum mechanics without being shown why it would eventually matter for these transistors. That's the arc. 4 quantum failures in production devices today. 4 frameworks that replace the failed classical models. And a derivation path that connects the postulates to the predictions without skipping the physics.